Omnia Pro gives you the confidence to eliminate dead water on thousands of lakes across the U.S. Exclusively through Omnia, utilize our map layers containing critical real-time satellite information to see water temperature, water clarity, and important weather data all in one place, along with 1-foot contours for navionics and detailed CMAP social mapping. Matched with Omnia's industry-leading loyalty credit program on all your tackle and gear needs, this is the only app you need in your arsenal for success on the water.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Guide Day, a BTL special as we roll on and highlight different guides from across the country with unique fishing experiences. And we've done, perhaps just because I really like smallmouth and I think it's a really cool experience, and I talk to a lot of guys that are down here, especially that belt from like Oklahoma across down to Florida, who have always wanted to get up and tangle with some giant smallmouth. And I'm like, dude, you got to get up and do it. Like, it's the deal. And we had JP on, and we'll have Travis Manson on here too in a little bit to talk a little bit about that kind of New York Northern, but one of the other hotbeds for smallmouth, without a doubt, and it has been highlighted in postseason and all-star events on the Bassmaster Elite Series in the past, is Minnesota. It's known as the land of 10,000 lakes, and in those 10,000 lakes, there's a couple that really stick out as hotbeds for giant smallmouth fishing. And then it also opens up a whole different part of the country to a lot of those anglers in the Midwest and the South, like that can make a 10 or 12 hour drive. It's a lot different than a 20 or 24 hour drive, and you still have a chance to catch a giant fish. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And we are going to bring in a familiar face to BTL, and that is none other than Trevor Lo. Trevor, thanks for jumping on Guide Day today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
So we've had you on a bunch in the past with Omnia, which in the past, that was your full-time job for how many years?
About 1.5 years, almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. Did a great job bringing Omnia and increasing the awareness on that, working with their pro team, their staff to get the word out on Omnia. But I don't think we ever dove into it during the episodes on BTL. But guiding is kind of one of the ways why you ended up with Omnia. You continued to guide while you were with Omnia, and now just recently you've got what? You have one kid with a kid on the way?
That's correct. Yeah, I've got a daughter who's about 20 months old, and then I've got a son coming in July. So it's coming quick.
But I talked to you at the Bassmaster Classic, and you said, hey, man, want to spend more time with the family, and I want to reignite that passion that I've had for guiding that I did full-time before Omnia, that I did part-time when I was with Omnia, and now you have ventured off into the world again of full-time guiding.
Yeah, that's correct. I left Omnia a couple weeks ago, and loved my time there. Really appreciative of all the relationships that I was able to build, all the experience that I got at Omnia. I have nothing but great things to say about the company and the people there. But yeah, transitioning into this new stage of life, this just gives me the opportunity to have more flexibility with my schedule. My wife, she is a news reporter here in the Twin Cities. And so, she's got kind of a funky schedule. So this gives me the opportunity, like I said, to be flexible and to work my schedule around her. So we have time with the family, and gets me back on the water, which I love. Love sharing my passion of fishing with people. And it's super rewarding to see, younger novice anglers or even experienced anglers tangle with, world-class smallmouth up here in Minnesota.
All right, let's dive right into it. Let's talk about Mille Lacs Lake. It's been on the radar for a long time. It was thrust into the spotlight when Seth Fighter won up there on Mille Lacs Lake. It's a very dynamic, unique fishery that has all sorts of political and economic and regulations and things that are going with it. But it's one of those mythical places that I hear. You hear Okeechobee in Florida or Havasu out in the desert or the California Delta or Lake Gunnersville. I would put Mille Lacs in that category as a place with massive potential, but also slightly intimidating if you've never been there. Is that a fair assessment of that fishery? And then just kind of break down how you would describe Mille Lacs to the average guy who's never been there.
Yeah, it's I think that's a fair assessment. It's a big body of water. The weather can turn on you, and so that's probably the most important thing to pay attention to, especially the wind. There's really no protection from the wind outside of fishing the side of the lake that the wind's coming out of. And when you're talking about Mille Lacs, like I said, big body of water, but a lot of the lake is not what you would consider fishable water. You got the entire center of the lake, but it consists of a ton of mud flats. And generally speaking, the smallmouth aren't going to relate to that. You'll get walleye that are out there. You'll get burbot, which you are now familiar with.
Oh, I love I caught one of those first time ever. Those things are the coolest.
Yeah. So you'll get those out in the mud. But the smallmouth are going to relate more to your reefs, your shorelines with all the rocky flats and rocky rock piles and reefs and stuff like that. Yep.
It's 133 acres. You mentioned a lot of it isn't fishable. The first time I ever laid eyes on Mille Lacs and looked at it, I was like, this thing's just a massive circle.
Correct. Yeah, it's like you said, it's about 20 miles across, 20 and change, depending on which direction you're looking at. But yeah, it's on a clear bluebird sky day, super calm on the water, you can see across the lake. But other days, it's like looking out in the ocean, you can't see the other side.
It was ranked as the #1 lake in both 17 and 18, I believe, by Bassmaster. It got a lot of pressure and continues to get a lot of pressure. Talk a little bit about the guiding season out there in Minnesota. I believe you guys have some interesting, in Oklahoma, I can go fish for whatever the heck I want to, 365, I think, unless it's like a paddle fish or a stocked rainbow trout, but a little bit more stringent up in Minnesota when it comes to targeting and catching the smallmouth bass.
Yeah, we have seasons, and I might be wrong saying this, but I think we're one of the only states, if not the only state, that continues to have bass seasons, open and closed seasons for inland waters. But our fishing season opens up for catch and release the second weekend of May, and that goes until the subsequent February for inland waters. But by the time November, December rolls around, all of our lakes are iced out. So, generally you're not targeting bass through the ice. Some people do, but, our open water season runs from about May until November. And, Mille Lacs, when these fish come off the winter time, the ice finally breaks apart and you get open water. It's like these fish haven't seen lures in 6 months. They're super hungry. They're super easy. I wouldn't say easy to catch, but they're super eager to eat. And they're super aggressive at that time of year.
Talk about your history with Mille Lacs. It's been well documented. You fish in the Bassmaster Classic as a result of being a collegiate fisherman for Minnesota. You then fished some Bassmaster Opens after that. But talk about how you got your start guiding on that fishery.
Yeah, I mean, I started fishing Mille Lacs probably 10-ish years ago. And, it was kind of one of those quote unquote best kept secrets by the locals, until Bassmaster really came to Minnesota. It didn't have that nationwide publicity that it has now. And yeah, the fishing was incredible. It's still very good. It's not quite what it used to be, but that's fine. It's public water. Everybody has access to it. And, we definitely want to share our resources with people as much as we can. But yeah, it's one of those lakes where, it doesn't matter. It seems like the average fish there is 4 to 4.5 pounds. You can go catch a pile of them. If you're not hitting 20 pounds a day, that's a slow day. You're kind of upset with yourself if you're at 18, 19 pounds a day. And, a great day out there is like 25 to 28. And, there are people that have claimed to catch 30-pound bags out there on smallmouth too. So it's very doable. We've seen very, very big fish come out of Mille Lacs. But like I said, I think just the sheer quantity of quality bass in that lake is astounding. And you really get to see that when you come up.
How did you get started guiding?
Yeah. So, I began fishing Mille Lacs a ton, and I have friends that have guided up there for a long time, and I thought, if there's something that I can do in order to make a living while getting on the water,
Mm-hmm.
I was interested in, and so it's hard to say no when you can spend every quote unquote work day on Mille Lacs, and one, potentially get to fish as well as see other people fish and catch big smallmouth while they're doing it. So that's kind of how I got plugged in. I had some friends that, kind of helped me understand the nuances of guiding, as well as the I guess you would call the guiding atmosphere, or guiding climate up here in Minnesota. Just so I didn't just show up and step on anybody's toes and try to act like I was the guy or I was the man up here. There's many people who've been doing it longer than I've been alive up here, and so you want to have that respect, but also wanted to participate in that and get involved in it as much as I could as well.
That's a great point that you bring up, because regardless of where you go, you talk about a historic fishery, you're going to have a lot of guys that guide on it. We're going to have Josh Douglas on later this year, who also guides on Mille Lacs, a little bit of a different system. I think that he uses a little bit more limited, but when you're getting into it, is that one of the kind of under talked about things in the guiding community, as far as working your way into a lake where you've got a bunch of guys who are like, oh, here comes another guy, and then becoming established and working with them, and you guys having a working relationship when you have a lot of multiple guides who their livelihood depends on guiding on that body of water?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of similar to tournament fishing, where if you fish a trail, if you fish, let's just say in Minnesota's case, Minnetonka, for the most part where certain guys are going to start on their tournament day, and you don't, even if you have an earlier boat draw, you don't cut them, because that's where he's going to start, and you kind of have that mutual respect and that almost camaraderie in a sense, where it's like, hey, if I know this person's going to start here, even if I could get there before he does, that's his spot. You just kind of leave that alone and you go find your own stuff. And Mille Lacs is big enough that you can do that. There's plenty of fish out there that you can go find your own fish anywhere across the lake. And yeah, it's just having that mutual respect, because, you don't want to come out there and just start cutting everybody off, especially if they're also guiding and, on a trip or something like that. That's just not the right thing to do. So I feel that the more respect and courtesy that you give out to these other guys, the more they respect you. And like I said, I think that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest unwritten rules, or not so openly talked about things. And if you always, it doesn't hurt to ask questions too. If you don't understand, I think rather than just trying to make an assumption and play ignorant, I think it's also very good and helpful to just ask questions, so that if there are certain things that you should or shouldn't do.
Let's talk seasons, because there's some really cool bites that go down on Mille Lacs. I've actually partaken in the topwater bite on Mille Lacs, which I would rank as probably one of my top 10 most exciting fishing moments, just as a whole, fun fishing with these bass that would barely slurp down a topwater to where it looked like a 10-incher. You'd reel into it and it would be a 4 to 5.5 pounder every time. So let's start with that second week in May when the season opens, and just kind of take it in chunks, in your opinion, on what the seasons are, and then kind of the things that are most likely to put a mega sack in the boat. And if you go up there and fish for a day, you can expect.
Yeah. Generally speaking, when in a given normal year in Minnesota, that first week, opening weekend, is it's usually a pre-spawn deal. The water's still too cold. They're not up on beds, or they're not spawning yet. So obviously jerkbait comes into play. Hair jig comes into play. It's a great time to come and throw a hair jig if you've never caught one on a hair jig. I love throwing a little like paddle tail swim bait. That's kind of my jam. Tubes, Ned rigs, typical smallmouth stuff, pre-spawn stuff. But like I said, that's that time of year when they're all starting to push up, getting shallow, to go to feed and to spawn. And so, it's a great time of year to go and catch them out deeper. You don't have to go and just catch them off of beds. I know that can be popular, and it does kind of seem like some of those fish get harassed a little bit, especially I'm sure smallmouth are just too aggressive for their own good. You can catch the same one off a bed 5 times in a day. So I generally try to leave the ones that you can visually see alone, because other people are going to see them and go catch them as well. So but that's the nice thing about Mille Lacs. You've got this pre-spawn season, which goes from the beginning of May all the way until sometimes July, because
oh wow,
just depending on how late the spawn is and how cold it stays in the springtime, you'll have fish that are coming in waves. The first wave will come up and spawn first, and you still have the second wave that is still in a pre-spawn stage. And once that first wave pulls off, the next wave pulls up, and it's this huge cycle. And like I said, you'll find bedding fish in 10 to 15 foot of water that are still holding onto a bed in first week of July at times. And it's pretty wild to see. But then you can also see them on beds as early as first, second week of May as well. So a lot of it is hinges on the weather, but it's like I said, they do it in waves, so it's really cool because if you like catching them on a jerkbait, pre-spawn, hair jig, whatever you want to do out a little bit deeper, running around and looking for big schools of them that are waiting to push up, you can do that for a month and a half, or you can if you want to go pick some off of beds, you can go do that for a month and a half, so it gives you this big window of opportunity to fish however you like to fish.
Is that the best time, in your opinion, that May to middle of June, early July, to catch numbers of fish on Mille Lacs?
Yeah, I would say so. You can, like I said, you can run into a school of 50 to 100 of them, and you'll see them all just swimming on the up shallow.
Oh wow! Like visually lay eyes on them.
Correct. Yep.
Oh,
and
cool.
you can fire out like a Senko at them, and you'll just see like 10 of them just torpedo to it. It's super cool. I think, yeah, numbers wise, it's a ton of fun. And obviously you have that opportunity to run into a big one as well.
Okay. Then, so after that or during that is when the topwater bite pops off as well.
Towards the end of it, I would say kind of that post spawn deal. When they're pushed up shallow, when the water's warming up, water gets up into the mid 60s, that topwater deal can get real good. But like post spawn, pre-summer pattern is like unbelievable. That beginning of July to the end of July, sometimes we get like a mayfly hatch around that time of year too, and it can get really fun with a topwater for sure.
What other types of baits are you targeting them with during that time as well?
Yeah, hair jig is popular. Like I said, mayfly hatch. So something simple that you can cast, cover a lot of water with. Ned rigs are always popular all year long. Fish eat fish. So paddle tail swim bait. And I think that's when the jerk bait starts to slow down a little bit as they kind of push out into that deeper water post spawn. You can get them on a jig, which is a ton of fun. It's not always just spinning rods up here. You can catch them on a bait caster. You can boat flip them. So football jigs is a ton of fun. Cracking them on a tube. If you want to use a bait caster, you can do that too. But yeah, like I said, it's amazing because this fishery, like when they come up in waves, they leave in waves. You can, you really can catch them however you want most times of the year. But that's like I said, when they're up shallow post spawn, kind of cruising the reefs and staying in that 5 to 8 foot range, you can really do some work with a topwater too, and that's a ton of fun.
And then as the weather transitions to fall, which I would imagine starts to happen in mid to late September into October and November, talk about the fall bite on Mille Lacs.
Man, the fall bite, we talk about the springtime bite, but the fall bite, it's almost like you don't catch small ones in the fall.
Really?
It just seems like every single one you catch in the fall is big. They're feeding, they're getting ready for winter. They know that first cold front is kind of the signal. Okay, things are starting to cool off. We need to start eating. The bait fish is all in relatively, I guess, bigger in size at that point of the year too. So your perch, you have Cisco that move up from the depths, and these are like big 6, 7, 8 inch Cisco that smallmouth are feeding on. So glide baits are popular, A rigs are popular. Big. I throw a big like 6 inch paddle tail Kitech, and yeah, like I said, you can run into a school of them, and like I said, they're all 4 to 5 pounders, and sometimes, if you get them on that big swim bait or like a big jig or something like that, you can run into like a true 6 to 7 pound range fish. So
they'll come up and eat a glide.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like how many a day average fall day, let's say you got someone who's like, dude, I want to glide smallmouth all day. What are we talking average day? Like I said, I think people by now realize this is fishing. There's a ton of uncontrollable variables. You can hit it, but generally speaking, average in the fall, if you glide all day, what are your followers, bites, fish catch?
Oh man, if you're gliding all day in the fall, I'd say you could catch anywhere from like 10 to 20 of them,
Wow.
on a glide. Yeah. Like smallmouth are very, very aggressive. And chances are if one's following it, there's a second one following it too, and like I said, if you get around the school, you're going to catch one. I mean, they're aggressive that time of year. They know the water's getting colder. They're going to start feeding. And the bait that they're eating, we see them spit out perch that are 5-6 inches long. We see them spit out, Cisco that are, 7 to 8 inches long. So you can get away throwing like a big Chad shad or, something like that and working a glide bait and they'll come in, they'll hit it for sure.
When does that pond get locked up typically and you can't get a boat out on it?
So it's like the whole lake doesn't lock up first. It's the bays that'll lock up because that's where all the ramps are there. So I'd say, middle of December. If you can bear the cold, you can fish all the way through, November. But yeah, right around, early December, mid-December is when it locks up. And then, it takes a while for the whole lake to freeze over to the point where you can, drive out there and ice fish. But in terms of preventing you from getting out on the water, then yeah.
Drive December. Out. Yes. You just used the term drive out there and ice fish. Do you like doing November trips, like cold weather trips where you get bundled up and have to wear the gloves? Like that can be productive too. If you got a guy who's maybe not a hunter, but gets a week in November that he wants to come up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like I said, that's some of the best fishing. The people get scared of seeing like 40-degree water temps and they think the fishing's slow, but there's something about these Minnesota fish that they just kind of like us Minnesotans. It's in our blood. We know that when it's cold, it's just like, pucker up, it's going to be a cold one. And you just got to go about your day, and they're still eating, they're not going to just completely turn off. If anything, they know it's like, it's time to eat. So.
As I said, I asked that because that picture looks like it was a fairly cold day.
Yeah, that's my good buddy Dave. We were out there. That must have been like an October, November trip. So it does get cold out there, and but the fish are still eating for sure.
We'll talk more into it. So obviously, Mille Lacs is known for its smallmouth bass. A lot of other species out on Mille Lacs too: walleye, perch, muskie.
Yep,
largemouth. On an average day, if you're targeting smallmouth, do you also usually have some bycatch as well?
Oh yeah. I would say, if you're targeting smallmouth specifically, you're probably going to run, anywhere from 3 to 4 smallmouth to 1 walleye at least. You're going to run into walleye. They're around the same areas. They're around the bait. They're out there chasing perch. And especially if you get around some of that grass, you can definitely get into some walleye. But instantly when you're fishing, you set the hook, you get that initial head shake, and then it's just like pulling in a stick. That's a walleye. You lose all the head shakes when it's a walleye, but if it continues to head shake, then you've got a smallmouth for sure.
So the walleye also are like strictly regulated out there.
Yep.
Just based on what's kind of happened with Mille Lacs actually had, I guess, like a walleye crash, and now it's all sorts of political stuff. But you don't really target walleye with your guide clients, or is that kind of up to you if you get on a school of walleye? Because, I mean, I just remember when I was there, like there's an insane amount of 5 to 7 pound walleye in that.
Oh, yeah.
Like I fished it like 3 days just for fun and set my personal best walleye like 9 times on a tube.
Yep. Yeah. It's the walleye population, I would say, to me personally, and I'm not a fisheries expert by any means, but I think it's fairly healthy. Like I said, we catch a lot of walleye, not trying to catch walleye, and I think that speaks volumes. To your point, we do run into very, very nice walleye. I've caught, basically every walleye you catch is anywhere from 21 to 29 inches. They're good sized walleyes. I haven't broken a 30 incher yet. But I know there are 30-inch walleyes in Mille Lacs. But yeah, to your point, it does get a little political. The walleye regulation is kind of strict. I think, for a portion of the year, they open it up and they put a slot. So like you can keep one from like 21 to 23 inches, and then anything outside of that has to be immediately released, So
Yep.
If a client catches one that falls into that range, I leave it up to them if they want to keep it. As far as smallmouth, it's my policy on my boat is anything smallmouth gets immediately released. But if it's a walleye that falls under that slot and it so happens to be in that season, they're more than welcome to keep it.
And then pike and muskie as well. those things can be pretty memorable fish as well out there too.
Yeah, you don't catch too many pike out on the main lake, but when you do, they're big. If you get into the backs of the bays, you'll run into more pike. There's a little more vegetation back there. But if it's one that's roaming the big, rocky reefs, it's got to be big enough to hang with the muskies. So it's going to be a big one.
How often do you hook a muskie? Me
personally, I've never hooked a muskie.
Really?
I've never caught a pike on the main lake myself.
A muskie or a pike?
Yeah. Yep. Muskie and pike. Like I've never hooked one. I've only ever like maybe once or twice seen one tail my smallmouth. I had one tail a walleye one time, and then I had one or two tail a smallmouth. But early springtime, middle May, early June, everything starts pushing up shallow. So you'll see muskies cruising around. You'll see them paired up, and kind of swimming together. And I have foul hooked one with a jerkbait in the back, but I didn't land it.
So it's not like a
Yep.
2 or 3. So is Mille Lacs still a really underrated largemouth fishery, especially when they get up in the reeds and shallow?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody is caught up in the allure of, catching smallmouth, and they leave the largemouth alone. So, if you know the bays to get into, you can go skip docks and catch 20 pounds of largemouth skipping docks on a jig or something like that. It's a ton of fun.
All right. Weather-wise, talk about the ability to get out on the lake. You're basing a vacation, some days around this, a lot of big water smallmouth. You get blown off the water. Is that a possibility on Mille Lacs too, or is there usually areas of the lake that you can get out on even if it's blowing?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, you can get out unless it's like 25, 30 mile an hour winds consistently, constantly, I guess. For the most part, you're going to fish the side that the wind's blowing out of. If you've got less than 10 mile an hour winds on the lake, then you can probably fish all over the lake. Just depends on how bumpy you want to be all day. But yeah, if it's blowing 15, 20, 25, we're just going to fish the side that the wind's coming out of, and you're just kind of forced to play that side. That's just the way it is.
And that lake is developed enough around it to where it's not like a remote lake. Like there's amenities, gas stations, restaurants. You can basically follow the lake around to where if you need to put in a different launch ramp that has less wind, you can do it. So it's very traveler friendly, so to speak.
Correct.
If you're traveling with a family, if you want to get dropped off to go guiding for the day and the rest of the family goes and does something else, it's not like you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it is somewhat kind of in the middle of nowhere, but to your point, depending on what side of the lake you're on, I know the West End has like Grand Casino. People want to go hang out there and do that sort of stuff. But it's only about an hour and 15 minutes from the cities. So, if somebody wants to stay up there and let's just say dad and son go fishing and mom and daughter want to run down to the cities, they can do that and go spend the day down in the cities. So it's not extremely far from the cities. So you can still get out and do things that you'd like to do if you're not fishing. But yeah, to your point, plenty of ramps that you can launch from any side of the lake, depending on which way the wind's blowing.
All right, let's get down in the nitty gritty. What do you guide out of? What do you offer as far as equipment? What do you bring if you want to roll up and hit Mille Lacs a couple days? Yeah,
so I run a Bass Cat. I got a 20-foot Cougar FTD with a 250 show. So fully loaded. I've got live scope, 360. All the bells and whistles to to make sure that we're putting you on fish. If you're fishing with me, you're more than welcome to bring your own equipment if you want. But I'll get you set up with all, Daiwa rods and reels. I've got, basically everything you need. I supply all the tackle, cooler full of ice to bring whatever beverages you like, whatever snacks you like, and we'll go catch them. Like I said, it's my goal to put my clients on 20 pounds a day at least when we go out. And, if we're getting close, let's just say it's 19 pounds and, we've hit our quote unquote 8 hours a day, we'll work the extra, 2 hours or whatever it is to get you to 20. We're going to make sure that happens. Or if it doesn't, we're going to, do as much as we can to make it happen.
Skill wise, better to be a diehard bass fisherman. If you want to bring son or daughter with you, your wife, a friend who doesn't fish very much, talk about how that works as far as success relating to fishing experience and talent.
Yeah. I've taken clients out from people that have never thrown a rod and reel to people that, think that, I don't know what I'm doing and we should go try something else. So I try to, make the fishing or the fishing techniques that we do as suitable as possible to your skill level. So one, I love, we're going to find active fish. I don't want to get into a mode where we're trying to, catch one big one and we're working, 30 minutes to 45 minutes to just try to get one big bite. I want to go somewhere where we can get fish, and they're still going to be good ones. 3-pounders, 4-pounders, that sort of deal. But a lot of it is going to be, spinning rod stuff. So for those that don't know how to throw a bait caster, that works. And for those that do want to throw a bait caster, I have bait casters we can use as well. But yeah, try to suit it towards whatever your skill level is. And I understand that, when you have some novice anglers, when they fire out a Ned rig, they don't know how to drag the bait on the bottom and they just reel. And so if you have people that want to reel, we can throw a little swim bait out, or we can throw a different kind of bait that you can just chuck and wind.
What's boat traffic like on that place now as a weekday versus weekend? Like, what do you typically just kind of run through what you're expecting? You get in the boat with you hop out. Are there guys left and right? Can you go the whole day without seeing guys? Like, how's that place fish?
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever go the whole day without seeing somebody unless it's like a weekday and it's brutally cold and miserable.
A windy November day.
It's a windy, rainy November day, right? But surprisingly, you'll see musky guys out during those days too. But the boat traffic's not terrible. Obviously, the weekdays are lighter than the weekends. But for the most part, you see a lot of boat traffic on, your quote unquote community holes, all the reefs that have buoys marked on them and everything like that. And, generally, if the fish are there, we're going to fish it. I'm not going to take you away from the fish just because there are boats nearby. There's enough fish to go around, but ideally, we like to kind of stay off the beaten path and go catch some fish and hopefully not get seen by too many people doing it.
Do you offer like the educational too? Like a guy wants to come and say, "Hey, I want to learn how to find this stuff on my electronics, or I want to throw this specific bait for a couple of days." Is that an option as well when they initially contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I love sharing my passion with people, and if that's learning how to break down a big body of water like this, happy to do that. Happy to let you sit next to me, look at the electronics, work the trolling motor, fish the live scope, do whatever you want to do, understand 360, kind of explain. Usually what I'm doing on the water is explaining what we're seeing, just so it's not like, okay, throw 2 o'clock this way, 30 yards out. I want you to see what we're throwing at so you can take some of it home and say, okay, look at, we're standing up on the front deck. I look down at your 360. Hey, looks like there's a rock pile over there. Should I try over there? Yeah, absolutely. Make a cast, and when they can start to, piece those things together, use the electronics to do that, it's surprising to see how many people are like, man, I got to go get 360 on my boat now. You've convinced me. Or like, man, this live scope is awesome. So like I said, it's super rewarding for me to be able to help teach some of those anglers that don't understand that stuff, how to use that equipment to be successful in the water.
When it comes to the amount of time that they're fishing with you, talk about 1 day, half day, multiple day, what's your kind of ideal scenario to experience it? And then are the options if you're in the Twin Cities for business and have a day to kill?
Yeah, I would say, I would definitely try to book a full day. That just makes the most sense because one, if you're going to make the trip, especially if you're coming from out of state, it only makes sense to spend the whole day out there. You can get you can get to see more spots on the lake. We got more time to fish and hopefully more time to catch fish. We're catching more fish with more time on the water. And I think it just, if you're catching a ton of fish, it just makes sense to be out there longer than shorter and cut your day short. So would definitely recommend a full day. Mille Lacs is such a big body of water that I've taken, 3-4 day trip clients, and we still don't hit, nearly all the stuff that we could hit in a 4 day span there, just because there's so much water. And if you run into a spot where, you're catching them, it's like, why would you leave to go and, potentially run into another spot where they're not as active or maybe the wind's not as good there and you're just miserable bouncing around in 3-footers when you could be, catching them in calmer water and just enjoying your time.
Website, a lot of details. Up to date is Trevor Lo, TREVORLO fishing.com. No spaces in between. It kind of a cool there. It talks about fishing in the classic, your path there, information on Mille Lacs. Prices as of April 16th, when we're recording this, 2024, on the website as well. Looks like a full day, 8 hours is $700. And that includes up to 2 people.
2 people. Yep.
Easy to fish with 3 in the boat, no problem.
Most of the time I'm not fishing. So it's,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pull up, and if I need to make a couple casts to check if there's fish here, I'll do that. If I hook into one, if you want to reel it in, you can reel it in. Most people say no, but I put the rod down and say, go to work. It's on you guys now.
I like it. What else am I missing? What am I missing here that you think is valuable information, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to get a hold of me is through my website. I also have a sweet giveaway going right now. So now until the end of April, I'm offering a full all expense paid trip for one lucky person. If you're down in Texas, I'll fly you up. I'll put you in a spot to come fish with me for a day. And it's going from now until the end of April. So it's on my website as well. I think it is. If you check out the homepage, it should be there. I think if you scroll down, there might be a giveaway.
Hold on. Let me
picture.
Do this here. Okay, guide trip giveaway. So just on the main page, there's the top. You scroll down.
So if you click that, it should take you to the giveaway page. And then all you got to do is submit. There's like a Google form down at the bottom. It says giveaway entry form at the bottom there. So how do I enter? Yep. And then subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's it.
Fantastic. And that's a big time giveaway, dude.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta sweeten the pot so that you get some people to come in and enter. So like I said, if you win it, if you're wherever you are, hopefully you're not in Russia or something, and I don't have to pay that expensive of a plane ticket, but I'll fly you up to Minnesota.
I would maybe put some stipulations on the lower 48 there.
Yeah, for sure. But so if you're interested, sign up for the giveaway. Like I said, it's free to enter. All you got to do is fill out that form, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get that up and going again. And then if you win, I'll fly you up. I'll put you up in a spot up there, and we'll go fish.
Have you guided some clients from some unique parts of the country?
Yeah, I've clients from Texas, Arizona, Florida. I'm trying to think where else. I mean,
all over where you don't catch big smallmouth.
Yeah, all over the place. Good number from Minnesota, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's cool to meet people. That's one of the very rewarding things is meeting people, and when you get to spend a whole day on the water with them, you get to learn a little bit about who they are, and you meet some very, very interesting people. I actually had a guy, he came up and he wanted to catch a smallmouth on a fly rod. So he's sitting on my back deck, just whipping away shallow like a little hair jig, and yeah, we made it happen. He caught one on a fly rod. He also caught a walleye on a fly rod, which was bizarre, but it worked. So
do you want to give your email out here? There is a contact you page on trevorlowfishing.com, but also if you're listening on iTunes, and I'll put this in the description of the YouTube if you want to
Sure.
Email Trevor.
Yeah, it's just fishing.trevorlo, TREVORLO @gmail.com.
If you had to pick your favorite way to catch them and the favorite month to catch them, bait and time of the year that just you wake up every morning and go, this is what I live for. On Mille Lacs for smallmouth, what are you going with?
Late October on a football jig.
They just don't.
Yep. And you get to crack them. I mean, it breaks the monotony of, spinning rod and then letting them play and letting them run. I mean, 20-pound test, crack them on a football jig, boat flip them.
Are the Mille Lacs smallmouth jumpers or diggers?
They are diggers for sure.
Not tail walking fish.
No.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting because I remember, fishing the opens. You get to some places like Cayuga, or not Cayuga, Oneida.
Oh, not Heart Attack. Every single time.
Every single one.
They feel the hook and they bottle rock it.
Yep. That is not how they are on Mille Lacs. They are diggers for sure.
So they'll just run.
They run. They head shake. They dig. You look at those New York smallmouth. As soon as they feel a little prick, they come straight up.
Are they a unique breed up there in Minnesota? In your opinion, you fished all over the country, caught all sorts of different type of smallmouth. Are they a little bit different strain, do you think, than New York smallmouth or anywhere else in the country?
I feel that the New York strains, being from Minnesota, I'd say the New York ones are unique in the sense that I feel like they've got so much more power in their tails, and they just like one push of the tail just does so much more for those New York ones. And maybe it's if they're Great Lakes, they're in that big water, swimming in the current from the St. Lawrence, all that sort of flow. Maybe that makes them a little more tough, but I don't know. They're like I said, completely different from Minnesota ones where you touch them with a hook and they come flying out of the water.
They seem to be more, the big ones on Mille Lacs seem to be more character to them as far as coloration, scars. They're kind of big slobs, like they're really good picture fish.
Yeah, they're like balloons. They're like blimps. They're short but very round. Obviously, the term is football, but yeah, you can go to New York, like I said, and you can go catch a 5-pounder, 6-pounder out in New York, and they're just, I would say, generally more proportionate, if that makes sense.
Whereas that freak right there.
Yeah, that one was a fat one.
Really golden too, really golden deep colors of brown on them.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can get some that just look like that beautiful bronze, just a polished bronze, but then you also get some that are just tiger striped, like real solid bars going down them. But you get the whole 9 yards on Mille Lacs, that's for sure. You get some that have like that long top dorsal fin that looks like a mullet, and it's pretty cool too.
Awesome. All right, Trevor, anything else before we wrap up this edition of Guide Day?
No, man, I just appreciate you having me. Like I said, if there's any questions, people, they can get a hold of me on my website or any of my socials. I'm happy to answer them. So
booking now, season opens second week in May and runs through ice in. Is that what you call it? Ice in? What do you call it? Because there's ice out. What is it when the ice comes in?
Yeah, I'm not
the
sure.
end of the season for open water.
Yeah, until it gets locked up, I guess.
I like it. All right, this has been another edition of Guide Day, presented by Omnia Pro. Check it out on Omnia Pro. A lot of cool features there on OmniaFishing.com. Trevor Lo, if you're in the Twin Cities, Minnesota area, Mille Lacs is definitely a bucket list trip. That's all we got for today. We'll be back with a live show on Monday. We'll talk to everybody then. See ya.